Hey, welcome everyone to a casual gamer's review of Cyberpunk 2077 along with the DLC, which is Phantom Liberty. Now, if you have no interest in Phantom Liberty, you only want to pay for the original game, that's fine, we'll cover it still. Now, if you want to see the written version of this review, you can find a link to my website in the video description. And there are absolutely no spoilers throughout this entire review. So, diving into the game, again, this is before Phantom Liberty even comes into the mix of the story. You start off with the game, it's like the customization of the character availability is insane. You can customize literally any parts of the character, including some of the more private areas of the body, which is a little odd because that isn't really shown or utilized anywhere in the game. Like, I played 66 hours between the main game and the DLC Phantom Liberty, and I went through 6 different endings in those 66 hours, and a lot of the customization just wasn't visible. I just wouldn't see it because the game is played from a first-person perspective, except from when you're driving a vehicle. Like, my preferred vehicle was a motorcycle, not so much on cars. But anyway, it's still fun to do nonetheless. The facial customization I think is important because there are some elements where you walk into a mirror and you get to see your own face, and it just looks beautiful. Now, everything you're seeing is played on the base PlayStation 5, not even the Pro version. And it is just baffling to me that a game can look this good on a console, especially the base PlayStation 5. So I can only imagine what it looks like on, say, a gaming PC with maybe an RTX 5080, 5090, whatever. I'd just probably be drooling or salivating from the mouth if I saw that. But this was phenomenal on the PlayStation 5. The graphics are just some of the best I've ever seen. Now, graphics don't define a game, but almost everything about this game is just absolutely superb. So let's just backtrack. I'm getting in a rant. So character customization is phenomenal, even though we don't really use a lot of it in the game itself. The storyline itself, without any spoilers, it's really hard to explain because if I get too deep into the story, even like within the first 4 hours or so, it kind of spoils it. So basically, you start off with your character. Now, how you start off is up to you. There's 3 different ways to start off. I chose it as a kind of a street thug mercenary type, if you will. This one is a more corporate side and one is another third option. So anyway, I chose that as more like a street kid, someone who grew up on the streets and kind of knows everyone, gangs and all that good stuff. And you're given a choice to do a big time job. Supposedly, it backfires. You get into run-in with another mercenary and they end up becoming like best friends, like BFF. The game fast forwards then 6 months later into the storyline, and then you're given a big time chance job, but there's a lot of, iffy elements to the job description. The handler, basically the person who gives you the job, has a really shady reputation of screwing over mercenaries. So there's a lot of like gotchas here. And of course, the place you're stealing from is one of the top corporations in the entire world. So a lot of things are bound to go haywire, and obviously they do, but that's all I'm gonna leave it at. I'm not gonna mention anything else. Now, what's crazy about this game is that everywhere you look on, trailers and gameplay footage, it's a very dystopian future type of game. And it absolutely is. However, it's ironic and weird to say because it has some of the best human elements of a game I've ever seen. Side characters and your main character, the dialogue and the voices acting is phenomenal. There are such human elemental characters like person's psyche, people being sad, happy, joyful, scared, nervous, love, all these crazy things, all these insane emotions are mixed into this game, and they're portrayed in some of the best way possible, despite it being a cyberpunk dystopian type of game setting. They have some of the best human acting and elements I've ever seen in a video game, ever, hands down. In fact, this game is now one of my most favorite games I ever played. So you got a phenomenal story, you have phenomenal character acting and voice acting and facial animation from, 3D graphics, we're going to call it. The graphics themselves are superb. The gameplay mechanics are also awesome. Now, upgrading your character is a little intimidating and daunting because you can upgrade and customize weapons, which I never did once. I'll explain why shortly. There's a skill tree set, and then there's a cyberdeck implementations you can modify. Now, the cyberdeck implementations are kind of like your cyborg body parts, like advancing your legs with better parts, advancing your eyes with more better mechanics, stuff like that. So having that all mixed together is intimidating at the beginning, but after a few hours of gameplay, it's really easy to kind of figure out and mix and match how your character wants to be customized. Because I put so many hours into side quests and just the game in general, by the end of the game, I had maxed out the talent tree for health upgrades, hacking upgrades, and halfway through the cybernetic upgrades. So my character by the end of the game was like a walking tank. I could hack and just completely demolish maybe dozen enemies, I kid you not, in the blink of an eye, and I took no damage whatsoever, and my health, like I was basically like a god by the end of the game. And you'll notice that if you do the same thing, you can achieve that. There's different ways to do it. Some people like to do more melee-based combat. Some people like to do more hacking type, which is what I did. There's others where you're more weaponized specialist. You can do that with a melee weapon or whatever you want, or gun shooting. There's a lot to customize and choose what's adaptable to your playstyle, which is awesome. Sound is top-notch and phenomenal. Some of these soundtracks, not the radio stations that you can listen to while running around, because again, you have like, I guess, an FM radio player in your head. There's one song I've been having on repeat called The Rebel Path on Spotify. I've been repeating that song because the track is just so amazing. And that is a representative track, especially best for Johnny Silverhand. I'm not going to explain who that is, but basically it's Keanu Reeves. That's not a spoiler because Keanu Reeves is all over like trailers and ad campaigns. Typically Keanu Reeves, I mean, he's Keanu Reeves, he's awesome, let's face it, right? No matter what he does. But typically some of his best known roles, like John Wick or Neo from the Matrix series, he's kind of a one-sided character. There's not much to his personality. In this game, despite it only being voice acting and 3D capture of his movements, it was some of the best acting you've ever seen from him. And that acting gets progressively better as you go deeper into the story and build a relationship with Johnny Silverhand, aka Keanu Reeves. Now, I've been praising this game so far throughout this review, but it's not perfect. First and foremost, when I installed the game, I played for about 3 hours before the game crashed and reset on me. And not a single save file, even the autosave files, because it automatically saves a ton, did not save. I had to restart and redo the first 3.5-ish, almost 4 hours of gameplay. Really disappointing. So note, folks, is that whether you're installing a game on a PC or even a console, after freshly installing a game, reboot the console or computer and then play. And then from there on out, I used a lot of manual saves. I didn't rely on autosave. That it worked fine after that, but I was just being cautious and I used a lot of manual save files. There was another problem where in one critical mission, which is key to the story, it was part of the main storyline, you cannot progress without it, none of my weapons would activate. None of my hacking skills would activate. They're all just blanked out. And this particular mission required combat. I tried to troubleshoot it and went through a whole bunch of posts, and people had the same problem even from like 2 years ago. So they haven't really fixed this. It seems to be random with how it impacts people. Some people get affected by it, some don't. I was unfortunately one of them. What I had to do was a bunch of things. I had to make my character commit suicide. I tried that didn't work. Then after a bunch of troubleshooting, I realized that I just had to go back to a save file that I had from like 20 minutes earlier. Restored that save file, redid the mission, and it worked just fine. So there are some weird bugs like that still exist. And from my understanding is that CD Projekt Red, which is the game developer studio, is kind of halting big time patches and whatnot for this game because they're trying to focus on the next set of projects like The Witcher 4, for example. But all in all, I played, I think, through 5 endings on the main campaign story. Some were okay, but some were just absolutely phenomenal. There's a certain part in the game where you can play the ending over and over again, and you just have to play like 2 hours worth, depending on where you save the file, and you're able to play multiple endings. It just takes 2 hours each run through. Now, when it comes to the downloadable content, is it worth it? In my opinion, yes. It is a massive content, and the way the developers blended it into the main story was so seamless, I didn't know it activated. Because I bought the DLC and the main game together, throughout my campaign of the main game, the DLC kind of just activated. You got a communication from a very important character, and it's kind of triggered the events. It was so seamless, I didn't know I was starting to play into the DLC. And the way the map expanded into the DLC was so, again, very seamless. I had no idea I was playing the DLC, and I strayed away from the main campaign. It was not a bad thing, it just goes to show how amazingly well it was done. I really liked the DLC. I wasn't a fan of the ending as much because it does have its own dedicated ending that if you complete the game with the DLC, you can just leave it at that and walk away. You don't have to do the main campaign endings. Of course, I completed the DLC first and then I went back to the main campaign endings and then I replayed 5 different endings. How you want to do it is completely up to you. There's no right or wrong answer. The developers give you full freedom in that regard. The one key advantage I found personally to playing the DLC was that I was able to get way more experience points, way more upgrades. So when I went and back to the main campaign, I found that the main campaign endings, some of them were way harder than DLC. Just my personal experience, especially with a certain boss you have to face. Again, no spoilers. Overall though, the DLC, the graphics, the acting from, I can always butcher this guy's name, Idris Ebola, I think, the movie star slash DJ producer. A lot of people don't know he's a producer and music DJ. I thought his acting was phenomenal. I didn't hear his British accent once. He sounded fully like an American slash Canadian accent. It was phenomenal. He did a great job in my opinion. And I thought the side characters and well, all the characters in general, even in the DLC, were top notch, well written. And I felt a lot of sympathy for some of the characters. Like I actually felt really bad for some of them and their plights. Overall, the game is not perfect. I mentioned there's some bugs and quirks, but I can honestly say this is one of the best games I have ever played in my entire life. It's just that good. Story, graphics, music, gameplay, mechanics, combat, side characters. I just can't find anything bad to say, again, except for those random bugs, but I got past it and I'm really glad I spent this much time into it. Kind of wish I had more time to put more into this game, more hours, more side quests, but I'm still definitely satisfied. It's a game you must absolutely play. And that's that. I hope you found this video useful. Be sure to check out my website, link again in the video description. Hit the like button, subscribe. It literally helps my channel grow, and thanks for watching.